This is a story no child should ever endure, a tale scarred by unimaginable pain and betrayal. At just 4 years old, Judah Morgan's life was tragically cut short, not by strangers, but by the very hands that were meant to protect him. Judah's story is heartbreaking, but it's also a call to action, a reminder of the changes needed in a system that failed him. Welcome to True Crime Story, where we bring you stories that demand to be heard. If you're new here, I'm your host Perry, and I uncover these harrowing cases weekly, without any drama, just the truth. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss these important stories. Judah Marshall Morgan was born on June 17, 2017, in LaPorte, Indiana. He was a joyful, radiant child who could light up any room he walked into. He loved to dance, laugh, and bring smiles to everyone he met. People who knew Judah often spoke about his big heart, infectious giggles, and how he always seemed to carry a little bit of sunshine with him. His name became the law. Judah endured a cruelty no child should face today. We uncover hidden scars, even those left by his own mother. He liked to dance. He loved to dance. Anyone who met him felt lucky. He was happy, beautiful, and full of life. He was sweet, funny, and had a big heart, very sweet and loving up until he would have visits with his biological parents, and then he would come home. Angry Judah was bright from the very beginning. By his second birthday, he was fully potty-trained. Judah was like any other typical child his age. He was very energetic. Happy. The family dogs, Thor and Willow, meant the world to him. He loved his dogs. He found happiness in the smallest of tasks, like a visit to the grocery store. There wasn't anything that Judah didn't love. He would go to the grocery store, he'd say, "Hey, dude," to everybody. He was very social, very confident, and very cute like any boy his age. He was obsessed with anything with wheels. He loved his toys, especially his cars. Judah was a shining star. Judah was all this. Even though he was born into a very troubled family, Judah's biological parents, Mary Yoder and Alan Morgan, had struggles of their own. When he was born, hospital tests found high levels of THC in his system. That high level of THC in his system raised red flags, and hospital contacted the Indiana Department of Child Services. Mary and Alan weren't even allowed to take their newborn home from the hospital. Judah was not safe with them. He needed a sober, responsible adult, so Judah was placed with Mary's friend's mother. She was like placement for him, but Mary was allowed to live with her by DCS. After 3 months, Mary moved out from there because things were not great between her and her mother's friend. So after that, Judah was placed in foster care with Alan's second cousin, Jenna Hullett. She and her husband, Phil, and their 3 kids loved Judah from the start. Jenna and Phil embraced Judah like he was their own. He called Jenna Mommy, called her husband Daddy. Her kids were his siblings. They all affectionately called him Bubba. Jenna was ready to make Judah a permanent part of their lives and dreamed of adopting him, but every time she got her hopes up, DCS seemed to pull back, making promises that always seemed to fade away. DCS knew Mary and Alan's names. They'd faced multiple reports for neglect and abuse related to Judah's older brother Liam, who was just 3 years old when Judah was born. Alan had temper issues in 2012. He was charged with hitting Mary, that's battery. And the report says there was even strangulation right in front of a child. The charges were serious, but they were dropped in 2014 after Alan completed an intervention program. Despite this history, DCS never conducted a psychological assessment of Alan after losing custody of Judah and Liam Mary, and Alan went on to have 2 more children, Micah born in October 2019, and Dexter, who followed in September 2020. Alan had his 2 young ones with him, but his 2 older sons, Liam and Judah, were in foster care, and he wanted them back. In July 2020, Alan and Mary were granted supervised home visits with Judah and Liam, but these visits weren't what anyone had hoped for Judah. Just a young boy hated going. He'd cry and beg Jenna not to send him. He was squeezing around her neck, and he whispered in her ear. He goes, "Mommy, take me home, please." But her hands were tied. She had no choice but to send him to his biological parents. After only a few visits, Judah came home with troubling stories. He would come home to Jenna angry. He told Jenna that he had seen Alan kick Liam down the stairs and that Alan had hit him too. Jenna and Phil reported every detail to the DCS hoping for action, but DCS never investigated any of these claims. In 2019, DCS told Jenna that they were moving forward with terminating Alan and Mary's parental rights, a step that would have allowed Judah to stay with his foster family permanently, but nothing happened. In fact, DCS made a risky decision in April 2021. DCS granted Alan and Mary a trial home visit with Judah and Liam. This decision turned out to be a nightmare for Judah. He was placed in the care of his biological parents, despite Alan and Mary's troubled history. DCS moved forward, seemingly overlooking the risks. DCS was set on closing Judah's case as soon as possible to make this placement. DCS lowered its usual standards. Instead of strictly enforcing a no-drug policy, they didn't even conduct drug tests. It was like they were in a hurry to close the case for Jenna. This decision was devastating. She had loved and raised Judah from the time he was a tiny baby, and she knew in her heart that this new placement wasn't safe for him. She pleaded with DCS to reconsider warning them of the dangers. But her concerns were ignored. Then it went from 3 days a week to just completely ripped him from them. Gina told in an interview that when she went to drop him off at his biological parents' house, Judah clung to Jenna, wrapping his arms and legs around her, pleading not to leave. He would scream, and they would have to pry him off, because he did not want to go to visit. She gently put him down at his biological parents' door. He nestled his face into her neck and whispered. Gina told him she loved him, set him down and turned away quickly. He was squeezing around my neck, and he whispered in my ear. He goes, "Mommy, take me home. Please." I turned right around because I didn't want him to see me upset. That was the last time she saw him alive. Mary told investigator Judah started acting up, and he started peeing himself and pooping his pants, and he was fully potty trained. In this new home, Judah struggled. He barely knew his biological parents or siblings, so in my eyes, he was probably scared. He'd been potty trained since he suddenly started having accidents. I don't think that Judah ever stopped thinking about Jenna. Mary was pregnant during that time, and she went into labor. She called up her friend Morgan. Morgan Fulton drove her to the hospital where she delivered the baby in the early hours of October 10th, that same day, Liam's 7th. There was birthday. Party was in full swing with family and friends celebrating, but Judah wasn't there when asked. Alan brushed it off, saying Judah was at a friend's house, then at 1:30 a.m. On October 11th, Alan called Mary in a panic. Alan told her that Judah was unconscious and have a faint heartbeat, and he'd been trying to do CPR on him for an hour. Mary begged him to call 911. She also texted Alan's brother Jesse, urging him to go to the house immediately, but Jesse didn't respond with no response. Morgan dialed 911, informing dispatch that Mary's 4-year-old son was unconscious and not breathing. Just minutes later, first responders were dispatched to the scene at the address in Hamlet, Indiana at 2:53 a.m. Mary called 911 herself, explaining that Alan had lost his temper and hurt Judah when police arrived at 2:58 a.m. The house seemed abandoned. No answer at the door. No cars in the driveway, finding the door unlocked. They stepped inside. The sight that greeted them was appalling. The entire house was in complete disarray. Clothes, trash, and rotting food were scattered everywhere, with animal waste on the floor and a foul stench of urine and decay thickening the air. The officers were taken aback by the conditions, which were worse than they had imagined. It wasn't the first time these conditions had been noted. DCS knew the home's state all too well. Jenna had also reported the home's conditions to the local health department several times, but each report was referred back to DCS, and each time the caseworker had dismissed Jenna's concerns, claiming the house met minimum standards. Officers entered the children's bedroom and found Judah lying on the bed wrapped in a blanket. Officers quickly unwrapped him to give him first aid, but the first thing they noticed was his wrists and mouth were bound with tape as they checked for any signs of life. They determined the boy's condition is critical and alerted more officers to the scene. They also found 3 other children who were unharmed, but were taken to the hospital for safety. Children didn't see anything. They didn't hear anything. Judah was still alive. They took the kids and put them in the ambulance. As officers explored the home, they came across troubling details. A padlocked refrigerator sat in the kitchen, and a dog was confined in a small crate nearby, showing signs of severe neglect moving into the basement. Officers found it cold and dark, with no working lights using flashlights. They noted duct tape scattered on the floor and items that appeared to be bits and pieces of a child's belongings at the hospital. Judah clung to life, fighting with every bit of strength he had. But as the minutes passed, he began to lose his grip. His battle ended, and it was clear Judah hadn't just passed away, he'd been murdered. The last person who'd been with him was his father, Alan. But when police searched for Alan, he was nowhere to be found. Finding Mary was easier. She'd just given birth and was in the hospital. But Alan, he'd slipped away that morning. However, he wouldn't stay hidden for long. By 7 a.m. Alan was speeding down a Knox highway, reaching over 100 miles an hour. The chase didn't last. Soon after, police caught up, and Alan Morgan was finally custody at the station. Alan quickly lawyered up, so there is no police interview footage of him. He chose to remain silent. Mary Yoder, on the other hand, was a bit more cooperative. When detectives questioned Mary, she described Alan as abusive, not only to her, but also to Judah. According to Mary, Alan often punished Judah for minor mistakes, like potty training accidents or taking food without permission. Mary detailed how Alan would take Judah down to the basement. But the investigators believe that Mary wasn't being honest. They believe that she's portraying herself as a battered woman and putting all blame on her husband. Detectives then interviewed Judah's 7-year-old brother, Liam. The story Liam told the police was very different from his mother's. Liam told how he had seen their mom forcefully take Judah down to the basement multiple times, even when Alan wasn't. Home investigators obtained surveillance footage from inside the home. The footage revealed shocking incidents from October 7th, just 4 days before Judah's death. Mary can be seen taking Judah to Basemnet. Alan was charged with murder battery against a child neglect. Initially, he pleaded not guilty, claiming that Judah had died from choking on a sandwich. However, Alan changed his plea to guilty at the last moment after prosecutors offered a plea deal. This deal ensured he would not face a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The agreement also dropped the charges of neglect and animal cruelty against him on November 29, 2022 at the Fulton County Circuit Court. Alan was sentenced to 70 years in prison. Throughout the proceedings, he expressed no remorse, declining to provide a statement in or outside the courtroom. In 2023, Alan attempted to appeal his murder conviction, arguing that the trial court had misused its discretion and that his sentence was inappropriate. However, the Indiana Court of Appeals denied his appeal in July 2023, leaving Alan to serve his full sentence. While Alan was sentenced to a total of 70 years, he could potentially be released when he turns 80 years old, if he remains a mod prisoner in the jail. Indiana has specific laws regarding good behavior in prison. These laws allow inmates to earn a day off their sentence for each day served with good behavior. This means that even for a class of felony inmates can potentially be released in half the time if they comply with prison rules. As a result, Alan could serve just 35 years if he maintains good behavior during his time. In August 2023, Mary pleaded guilty to several charges: neglect of a dependent resulting in death, neglect of a dependent with cruel confinement, cruelty to an animal, failure to make a report, and 2 additional counts of neglect, along with 1 count of domestic battery against a child under 14. As part of a plea agreement with prosecutors, she confessed to beating Judah and her other son, Liam. Mary admitted that she often failed to intervene or report Alan's abusive behavior, which subjected Judah to cruel and torturous punishments. On January 5, 2024. The Leoport County Circuit Court judge sentenced Mary to 42 years in prison. Just like Alan, Mary could potentially serve only half her sentence if she exhibits good behavior. In October 2023, 3 DCS employees, Michelle Stowers, Michelle Gohl and Jean Dressen faced allegations of knowingly overlooking the dangers of returning Judah to his parents. Judah's foster mom says, instead of protecting Judah, they failed him. Jenna, outraged by these failures, filed a lawsuit against DCS claiming the employees' actions were reckless and that their negligence enabled Alan and Mary to continue the abuse that ultimately led to Judah's tragic death in 2021. A foster mom has filed a federal lawsuit naming 3 Indiana Department of Child Services employees. The case has sparked a wave of community anger, with many demanding justice for Judah and the many other children failed by the system. Why take this to court to help protect other children? In an interview, Jenna said, "I don't want Judah to die in vain. We want to get answers what went wrong and fix the system." Judah's case spurred legislative action in Indiana, resulting in the passage of Judah's Law, which aims to address systemic flaws in child welfare cases. Judah's Law, foster parents' rights. The law grants unlicensed foster parents, such as relatives or caregivers who provide care without financial compensation, the right to intervene in court proceedings. This allows them to advocate for the child's safety and well-being. Strengthened advocacy for children. Caregivers now have a stronger voice in decisions about custody and placement, ensuring the child's best interests are considered. Legacy of change. Judah's tragic story has become a catalyst for systemic reform, potentially saving lives by preventing similar tragedies in the future. Judah lived with his foster mother, Jenna Hullett, for nearly 4 years before DCS returned him to his biological parents in 2021. Months after returning to his parents, Judah suffered abuse and died from blunt force trauma. Court records revealed he was subjected to torture. Judah's Law provides a pathway for caregivers to have a meaningful role in child welfare decisions, ensuring their concerns are heard and taken into account. It also brings attention to the need for broader federal changes to protect vulnerable children from abuse and neglect. Thanks for staying with us through Judah's story. If you found this story impactful, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell to stay connected here. We shine a light on the stories that often get overlooked, so together we can make sure these voices aren't forgotten. Let's keep the conversation going. In the comments below, share your thoughts, and remember, every child deserves a safe, loving home. Until next time, stay aware, stay compassionate, and let's keep fighting for justice.